until all have heard.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Friends in Action International podcast. This will be the third episode of our podcast, Till All Have Heard. And today, I'd like to introduce Rob Donley. Rob is our mechanical supervisor here at Friends in Action. And not to tell him too much of his story, but hopefully you'll get an idea of Rob's background and his ministry here with us and how mechanical aptitude and mechanics, automotive, heavy equipment, how does that all tie into ministry? And that's what we have to share with you today. So without further ado, welcome, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me or visiting my shop.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just to start off, just some background information on you. We'll get into ministry and how God's called you here, but just a little bit about you and your background before you came to Friends in Action.
All right. Well, right out of high school, I tried college and didn't really enjoy it. Didn't do well. And then I was a Radio Shack manager for all but 10 years. And then my wife and I had started collecting these short people that showed up after, we had...
You're referring to your children.
Exactly.
Okay.
These I wanted to have my evenings and weekends back again. So then I made a transition from retail management to PennDOT as a equipment operator, driving snowplows. I did that for 3 winters, 2 winters as a temp and then full time. And then there was an opportunity for me to go into the shop as a diesel mechanic. And I had gone and gotten my CDL and my inspection license, so went into the shop, and I was 18 winters in the shop at PennDOT, and 2017 is when the Lord called us, or started to call us into full-time ministry, and so that's 2021 is when it was my last day at PennDOT, and January 22nd of 2021 and January 24th of 2021 was when I started. The commissioning service was at church, and I started here at Friends in Action full time.
Yeah. All right, we'll get a little bit into the Friends in Action piece here in a second. You started having kids.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about a little history of you and your wife, your family.
We are high school sweethearts. The first time I met her was actually I was volunteering as a tour guide at a local historic site, and Reba's mom, my wife's mom, was also a tour guide. And Reba came down during one of the special events we were having, and I saw her, and I thought, wow, she's a really good-looking girl. And so didn't really have a chance to interact with her until her freshman year of high school, when we met in marching band. That was my sophomore year of high school, and I thought she was incredibly beautiful then. She's gotten more and more beautiful over the years.
I was gonna say, I wanted to see where you were going with.
Yeah, no. I mean, she is absolutely the most incredible woman in the world. And we've been married now for, I got to do math. 28 years. I tell people though we've been dating for 33 years, which if you tell them that and then tell them we've been married for 28, it kind of makes eyebrows.
That's right.
Raised and stuff. So
very good. Kids, boys, girls, ages.
We have 4 boys.
4 boys. Okay.
4 boys. Yeah. Robert is the oldest. He right now is 25. Okay. And then we had twins when Robert was 19 months old. So they are 23. And then when the twins were 3 years old, we had the youngest, which is Ray. Robert is autistic. So he's at the top end, and Ray has Down syndrome, but I'm gonna cry. I cry. It's what I do. I'm the tear ducts of the body of Christ. I am very proud of my sons. The 3 oldest are married, and they are really incredibly godly men. I'm proud of them.
Good.
They're godly men leading their families and leading their communities, and just looking to see what the Lord has for them.
Very good. Very good. That's a testament to you and Reba for sure, and raising them. And while I would say probably we see Ray the most around here, and it's a good opportunity to get to know him. He's always fun to have at events and things.
And Ruben's moving back into the area. He was in the Navy, did 4 years as a corpsman in the Navy, and he just got out, and he's just finishing up the police academy, and so he will be a police officer. And they are moving to a house just about a block and a half from us. So my wife is thrilled because Ruben has 1 daughter, and Ruben and his wife Heidi, I should mention Heidi, have 1 daughter, and the second one's due in December.
Excellent.
So grandma will have grandchildren right down the street. And they're girls. She's not sure what to do with that.
Excellent. All right, so high school sweetheart, 4 boys, 5 including you, 6 including the dog. So Reba's hands have been full for the last 20-some years, 28 years.
Sure. Yep.
So very cool, good story, and yeah, it gives us a background about kind of who you are. So shifting gears a little bit to Friends in Action, what brought you to Friends, and what was that pivotal moment where you felt that yes, this is where God's called me? You had a career in well, again, Radio Shack. I mean, not maybe some of our listeners might not even know what Radio Shack was, but a highly technical retail store where you could buy phones and gadgets and widgets and motherboards and things like that for computers. And yeah, it was quite the thing back in the day, that's for sure. And then moving on to PennDOT, had a good solid job there with PennDOT. And then, to get pulled away from that to go into ministry, what was your, not a long path what you had, but what was the pivotal kind of the decision maker for you and Reba both?
I have never had any actual schooling to be a mechanic. The Lord's just put it in there, and so it was just kind of it's one of those things I recognized early on that God had given me skills and abilities, and when Tim Johnston, who was the director of Friends in Action, called me to 2008 to go on my first missions trip. I had left the East Coast twice, and other than that, we didn't travel. And so it was a huge step, but my wife and I were both convinced that the Lord was calling me to go to Nicaragua at the time, to one of the projects we had there. And that started those incremental steps of stepping out in faith and seeing God provide, and just watching Him in providing for our family and watching over us. And then 2017, as I mentioned, we just truly felt the Lord calling me to full-time ministry. And other than the friends and family saying, "What are you, nuts?" I can't tell you beyond that what it was. There was a sermon at church where the pastor the guest speaker actually was speaking to answering the call God has for you. And I had conversations with Tim Johnston again about the need here at Friends in Action for a mechanic. Mm-hmm. And I just knew the Lord was calling me to do it. We took a lot of time, a lot of prayer. Like I said, that was 2017. It was 2021 till we actually finally left and came here full time. And part of that was just vetting out, making sure of the calling, and making sure that it was the Lord's will and not my own will that I was following.
So I shared earlier that Rob is the mechanical services manager here at Friends in Action. Rob, that's kind of a unique opportunity to have that role with the mission organization. I'm sure you get into some unique situations, whether it be here at our facility that we're in here in Middletown right now, or abroad in one of the countries. What are some of your day-to-day tasks that you do here in the shop domestically, and then what does some of the things in the field look like?
In the shop, basically, when something needs fixed, I fix it. That could be.
Such is why we have such a broad job description for you.
Yeah. Nicaragua, it was a prime example. When I was there the last time, I spent time fixing wheelbarrows. A one wheel, but I was fixing wheelbarrows up through to the farm tractor that we have there. And everything in between. So there's also times here at headquarters where I'm working on, some of the facilities things. I've built some of the equipment we use for public displays and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what I'm doing here is metal fabrication and welding and different projects there. And then also just repairing vehicles and whatever else comes along. We are starting to work on some bikes for some missionaries heading overseas, and I am a bike mechanic up through to a heavy truck builder. So whatever anything mechanical that comes through is basically within my wheelhouse.
Good. So I know where I want you to go with the conversation, so I'm going to kind of lead you there. Some of the equipment that comes through FIA, because we ship it overseas, has to be either completely rebuilt, maintained, or just taken apart or broken down for shipment. Mm-hmm. So thinking of some of the recent projects, again, because you've only been here a few years, thinking of some of the recent projects, from the Mack truck to the dozer out front, to breaking down the equipment trailer to go in a container. I'm thinking I know which is probably one of the most memorable projects, but let me know what was one of the most memorable projects that you were able to be a part of here in your shop, and that you could draw other people into to help.
Well, certainly you mentioned the Mack truck. We took a 93 Mack tri-axle truck for roll-off dumpsters and made that into all-wheel drive. That is headed to Vanuatu.
When you say all-wheel drive, so what was it before?
It was just rear
wheel,
tandem rear wheels. It had a drop axle, an unpowered drop axle. We removed that axle. We put a transfer case in there. We put a driven front axle, or powered front axle under it, and just made it into an off-roading beast. I nicknamed it the Enterprise because it's got to boldly go where no truck has gone before. So that's headed to Vanuatu in support of the water project. But there's been a lot of other things. We have the crawler loader out back here, and that's the latest thing that was generously donated by Sporter, and it needs some work. The radiator's plugged up and things, and it's a 1972, but it is in pristine condition. That thing is in great shape. Just has some little tweaks that we need to do, and so I'm excited to work on that. Recently helping to load the container going to West Africa, and we packed mountain of stuff into that thing. I can't wait to see what the crane scale says when we pick that in 2 weeks here. But
explain just real quick some of the larger items that would equate to that.
Well, we mentioned the trailer that I had to take the axles off of that. We had to take the bucket off of the excavator. That's a Cat 304 CR excavator that went in there. A Bobcat skid loader. It was the largest Bobcat skid loader, the largest size. There's a zero-turn mower that had to be serviced, and there was about 10 different skid loader attachments that all had to get configured to work with the skid loader. as well as an AC machine, and just a wide range of stuff. So it was a lot of mechanical and infrastructure type of things, and that the equipment having to be prepped to go overseas requires, depending on where it's going, we have to drain fluids, we have to disconnect batteries, we have to have things in specific configurations so that, number one, it can fit in the container, but number two, that it's in compliance to the government or the area that we're shipping it to. I recently finished the Vanuatu, the new tractor that's going to Vanuatu, and that took a lot of exhaust work on it, things like that, because in the South Pacific they don't have the same emission standards, and the components are not available over there to service some of the more advanced stuff, so we had to kind of dumb the machine down a bit.
So before we shift into the next topic, just one more thing in regards to equipment. So explain briefly, you mentioned the excavator that's in the container now, ready to go to West Africa. You also mentioned the dozer out back. How did we come to acquire those things? How and what does that process look like, that maybe someone in the audience may have something similar or something maybe not as big that would like to see it used for missions? How does that run through your department?
Well, that's an excellent question. We've had a number of vehicles donated over the past little bit, and we want to make sure we're not. It's stuff that we can use. We can always resell things, but the excavator had been donated by a gentleman who had bought it for a project and then never used it. The same way actually with the loader. We had a van, 12-passenger van that was donated by my church. They got a new one, we got the old one. The Dodge pickup truck that we use around the facility here, we call it Don's Golf Cart. That was donated. The large pickup truck that we're using to haul equipment around and things, that was also donated. And those, when we get equipment donated, I have to go through and make sure, fix whatever's wrong with it, number one. Number two, make sure it's something that we can use, and where are we going to use it? As I said, it's great to have things come in and to be donated. If we don't have a use for it, though, then we may take it to auction or maybe sell it privately or something like that. But like the excavator had been something that was donated. We knew we would need it. We just weren't sure where. And then the team from West Africa said, oh, that's something we could use. And so there we go. It was here and ready to go when they were loading the container.
Yeah. So oftentimes as donors, you may think, well, I can donate to a cause or help support a team. There's actually tax benefits for you to donate equipment and vehicles as well. And like Rob said, whether that's we then process that and into a field or we resell it, there's tax benefits for you as a donor. So if you have any interest in that, Rob's information will be in the show notes. We'll go over that a little bit later, but an opportunity to think about how you can use what God has blessed you with that may be you may be done with it. You may not have a use for it anymore. Like Rob said, we are cautious about what we collect, but if we can help honor you and your gift through that and be able to use it for furthering work in the field, it'd be a great opportunity. So thanks for sharing that. Rob, one more thing, and we'll go back and talk about the Enterprise or the Mack truck that was converted. About how many people other than yourself were you able to draw into that project, just from volunteers, people that were interested in coming and helping?
I had a gentleman that came and helped me with a lot of the mechanical stuff, and then I had somebody came and helped with the fabrication work. We had a gentleman who came and did some machinist work with it, and then there were other people that came and helped with just doing things. So I think total, just off the top of my head, might have been 6 or 7 people. Depending on the projects, We have a lot of different things going on, and I always have projects around here.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to come and volunteer, I could probably find something for them to do.
Yeah.
So though there's not a lack of work really.
Yeah, very good. So you can use volunteers anytime on any type of project, skill level. It's a good opportunity to get engaged with missions. Maybe you want to be involved in some way, but you just aren't at a point where you can travel, or you feel God calling you to a foreign field. Perhaps it's volunteering a few hours a week, a few days a week.
Mm-hmm.
There's all type of opportunities here at our headquarters in Middletown, Pennsylvania. So thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
So let me shift gears a little bit and talk about your and Reba's journey to raising support. So as I've shared in the other podcasts, our staff is self-supported missionaries here. As part of your salary, you raise the support with churches, friends, individuals. Tell me about that as a faith journey for you, leaving PennDOT, which would have been your last paid job, and then coming to where you have to raise support and now rely on God leading others into that journey. And don't cry too much through this one.
I'll try not to. It is very powerful. It is extremely. It's an amazing process. When you are going through, it's very humbling too. When Reba and I started looking at raising support, I had talked to people in different churches, and they were all like, "Oh yeah, hey, when you're ready to do this, come talk to me, and we'll get you at our church." And there was this thing that happened back then called COVID. A lot of churches actually shut down and stopped doing missions, stopped doing outreach, which it was a shame, but it was actually God at work, because we've had a lot of individuals. There's a whole bunch of individuals who have contributed, and some of them it's not a lot. It's $20, $30 a month. Some of them it's a lot more, but I have a greater sense of accountability to individuals, and it's such a confirmation of we're exactly where God wants us, that we have people coming alongside of us, and this is an incredible thing, because we have people who are invested in what we do. They're interested in what we're doing. We get to share with them through our newsletters and things like that. And we have a whole host of people who are praying for us. And that's probably the biggest thing. There you go. Because nothing happens around here without prayer. That is the foundational thing. God, we serve Jesse Effler over in West Africa. Has said before, our God has a really big checkbook. He's got a really fat wallet. If it's something God wants us to be doing, the funding will be there. God has always brought along individuals who will support us, and if He's moving in people's hearts to support us, that's wonderful. But the biggest thing we need is prayer, because without God's direction, without God's leading, we can be going in directions that God doesn't want us going in. And when we have godly people who are coming alongside of us and praying for us and lifting us before the throne, it is just an incredible thing. And when I've been on trips, in some interesting situations on some trips, where things are a little scary and sketchy, to be able to send a message back home and to know there's literally hundreds of people lifting you up in prayer. That is probably the greatest and most incredible feeling, because God has you. There's people who care about you, and they are bringing you before the Lord, and He is blessing through those prayers, through those folks lifting you up. And that's one of the biggest things, truthfully. And then just being able to tell our story. That support is, you've probably said in other things, the go, what is it? Go, give, pray, give, go.
Pray, give, go.
Yeah, pray, give, go. I knew I've been hitting the head a lot. I don't get things right all the time. But prayer, giving, but then going. To have people who are walking alongside of you. Maybe they're going on a trip with you. Maybe they're just bringing you before their church, so that their church can hear about what you're doing. That coming alongside and going with you, even on short journeys, is a powerful thing. So,
very good, very good.
I think that answered your question.
It did.
Okay.
It did.
All right.
No, thanks for sharing. As we've talked a couple times in these podcasts, and I said a little bit earlier, our staff is financially supported by collecting donations from churches and individuals. We'll be putting Rob's bio link and things at the end of the show notes once we wrap up here. But as you get onto our website, all of our missionaries have bio links there where you can start to learn about them. Our hope and trust is for this podcast is to introduce you to staff members and learn a little bit more about them. But we'll put all that information at the end of the notes. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, and one thing with that, we're hitting another phase of our support raising because my wife Reba,
thank you,
has been working. We had 4 kids, 2 of them special needs and twins. So she was a stay-at-home mom early on, and we have debt. We did not want to have donors and supporters paying off the debt that we caused. So she has been working to eliminate that debt, and that debt will be discharged here very shortly. I think she's the bookkeeper of the house, so I don't. She knows when it's going to get done.
For us as staff, not soon enough.
Yes, yeah. Well, there's that.
Enough.
There's that. But yeah, she'll be leaving her full-time secular job here in June and coming into full-time with Friends in Action right after that. And so we'll be entering kind of another phase of support raising with that, because and it's neat because we're already starting to see some people coming around and upping their levels of support for us with that in mind. So it's been very encouraging and exciting to see that happening.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to Reba coming on board too in our finance office. She'll be a key role in helping with receipting of donations and other bookkeeping and financial tracking. So a very, very key job to the success of a ministry is tracking the finances, being good stewards, and also transparency with our donors. So yeah, we're excited. That's why I say it can't happen soon enough.
Yeah, I know your wife's really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Well, okay, Rob, I appreciate that. Let's there's one more thing before we wrap up. We talked a lot about work and what you do here. Share with the audience one key thing that you like to do when you can disconnect from work, disconnect from missions. I know it's hard sometimes. Missionaries, they often say, well, it's a lifestyle, not a job. And it really is. Yeah. But you've got to be able to disconnect. You've got to have that separation. What's something you and your family like to do?
I go and play with old tractors. We travel over to Steam Museum about an hour from here. And that's our family vacation. That's where we go. So even when I'm not doing mechanicing here, I'm doing mechanicing over there. It's I've always been fascinated with how things go together and how things come apart. Sometimes I'm better at taking them apart than putting them back.
Look around here. Maybe more apart than together, right?
Well, you can always use those parts, but so there's a lot of we do that, and we just have a great time over there. And that I've been going to the one show there since I'm 13, so we're going on this year, or this next summer will be 40 years. Yeah, 40 years. I had to do math again. 40 years that I've been going to that show. And so it's just been always something that we've done. But then other than that, as I mentioned, we now have a granddaughter, and that's been an interesting transition.
Oh, sure.
People have said she's one,
and it's a granddaughter, which
Yes.
your wife and you are not used to having daughters. so.
I don't know what to do with that. You know, she plays with dolls. I'm like, okay, but we're kind of exploring that and figuring that out. And with most of the kids raised still at home, but with most of the other kids out of the house, we have just been having a wonderful time. Reestablishing the friendship that we had. It's been a really neat journey. I have found more and more ways every day to fall more in love with my wife, and it's been really just kind of nice getting the kids out of the house and us reconnecting, and then just also finding younger couples that we can pour into. And kind of raise them up and help them in their journey in marriage and stuff like that. So
Well, good. Well, I appreciate you sharing today. I do want to ask you one last question because I know you'll have a good answer for it.
Oh no.
Because I watch how at events how you talk to people and how you're passionate about not just being a mechanic in ministry, but ministry in as a whole. And that's not you love it. I watch you introduce people to what ministry can look like for them, and it doesn't mean that you have to be old and retired and a Bible scholar or a church planner or a preacher. What is the last comment would be? What is one thing that you want the audience to walk away from that you would want them to how you would want to connect them or them to be aware of what missions could look like?
Well, I've said this to many people, I explain Friends in Action as we are kind of like the Army engineers for missionaries. We're the ones that go in and build the airstrips and the roads and things like that. And so we provide that infrastructure support, and that is so vital. I mean, I tell people, think about your church. How would your ministries be impacted if you didn't have the parking lot? But yet nobody remembers the name of the guy that built the parking lot. That's a vital part of what you do. Just like Friends in Action, we come in to ministries working in the remotest, hardest to reach parts of the world, and we provide that infrastructure so they can do what God's calling them to do. And I mean, I am not the guy that can lead a Bible study. I can, but I struggle enough with English, let alone a foreign language. So I'm not the guy that's going to go into the bush and try to evangelize. But I can fix a truck that will allow somebody to drive through the bush. I can fix the bulldozer that'll build an airstrip to allow light aircraft to fly in. I'm the guy that can go and do that level of support to support those missionaries. Kind of the frontline workers for the gospel, and we need more people like us. We need, we need more people who can do welding, who could do mechanical, who can do, and it's simple stuff. It's not, oftentimes I talk to people and they say, "Oh, well, I can't do anything." And I always tell them, listen, if you have a passport and a willingness to go and serve the Lord Jesus Christ, those are the requirements. And we can find something. We can find things for you to do. If you're trainable, if you're open to what God's calling you to do, that's what we need.
Yeah.
Is people to go and serve the Lord.
Absolutely. And I like how you said that. We need people to go and serve the Lord. You're not serving Friends in Action.
No.
You're serving the Lord.
Yeah.
And Rob and I have been on a lot of trips in the past 3 and 4 or 5 years. And I can honestly say, and I'm sure you can concur, that we've never taken someone along who felt like they stood there with their hands in their pockets with nothing to do.
Yeah, it's there's always those key elements, those key things that somebody who might be feeling maybe unnecessary for the trip, but they get there, they get engaged, and then they're like, "Oh, wow, it was so important for me to be here for this reason." And that always happens. It's happened to me when I was first considering coming to Friends in Action and doing full-time missions. to go on a trip and be there for one specific incident, and which is so life-changing for you or for other people, and to travel to the other side of the world. The one instance I'm thinking of is to travel to the other side of the world just to expand another person who had a child with Down syndrome, to expand their world, because where they were, there was no one else around that had a kid who was going through the same thing as we had gone through. And their world just became huge, or I guess became smaller. It just opened up so much of a horizon for that dear sister in Christ, to know that there's other people out there going through the same thing. And it's God always has a purpose for each person who he calls to go.
Yeah. Good.
So,
good. Well, I appreciate you sharing, Rob.
No problem.
So as you can see, Rob is quite passionate about where God has him here at Friends in Action. And we do these podcasts not to shine light on whose skill and what they're good at and and making a name for them. It's like Rob shared, we're just regular people doing what God's called us to do. And you've heard that from Nicole, you've heard that from Emily, and now you'll hear that from Rob. We're just normal people, just like you guys watching this podcast or listening to this podcast. So let me challenge you. How are you going to allow the Lord to lead you in some type of missions? Pray, give, go, until all have heard. Thanks for joining us today.